Welcome to episode 2 of my 15-minute crochet series. On episode 1, we made a cherry blossom flower bookmark. And if you haven't seen this episode, I will link it down below. Today's 15-minute project is a watermelon fruit keychain. Again, a quick disclaimer, this is only meant to take 15 minutes, but it could take longer if you're a beginner because you're learning stitches for the first time. For supplies, we will need black, green, white, and red size 4 yarn, and then a 3.5mm crochet hook, a darning needle, a keychain accessory, and some scissors. We will begin with a magic circle, so watch carefully because I will show you the easiest way to do it. So lay your yarn like so, put your left pointer finger between it, your right 2 fingers go here, and then your left hand twists like so. Your right 2 fingers grab this yarn and then pull until about here where you can see now there are 2 different holes on the circle. I insert my hook on this top one and then I make 1 chain like so, and then I turn my work horizontally, and that is your magic circle. Now I put a single crochet inside, so you yarn over like so and then pull through both. That is 1 single crochet. Again, another one, and then a third one, and I will be putting 6 single crochets into this magic circle. Most of the project will be in single crochets, so this is a good way to master this stitch. Okay, so after my 6 single crochets, this is what it should look like. I grab the tail and pull tight so that it is closed. Now, I look for the first single crochet that I made, and it's right here if you see that first V. I take my hook and insert it into that V, and then you should have the V on top of your hook like this. So that's 2 different loops. I yarn over, pull it through that V, and then pull it through the loop that is already on my hook. That is a slip stitch. And then I chain 1. You just finished your first row, and now we'll move on to the second row. For the second row, we'll do an increase here. An increase just means we are doing 2 single crochets in 1 stitch. So here's my first single crochet, and then I'll make another one in the exact same stitch right here. And then on the next stitch, I will do the exact same thing. So just another increase. So 2 single crochets into this next stitch. And you're going to repeat this for all the stitches in this row. So since we started with 6 single crochets on row number 1, row number 2 should have 12 stitches overall because you increased each stitch. For those who are learning a single crochet or the magic circle or the slip stitch or the chain for the first time, this is a good way to practice it. But if you need a slower demonstration, I have some videos that I made, and I will link them down below. And these are just short clips to get you used to all the stitches. So now that you're done row 2, I look for the first single crochet again that I made. Right here, this V, I insert my hook and I make a slip stitch. So yarn over, pull through the V, pull through the loop on your hook, and then a chain 1. Okay, for row number 3, we're going to do a single crochet first on this row. 1 single crochet. On the next stitch, I do an increase. So that's 2 single crochets into the same stitch. On the next stitch, I'll do 1 single crochet. And on the stitch after that, I do an increase. So I just repeat this pattern over and over. 1 single crochet and then an increase, 1 single crochet and then an increase until you get to the end of the row, and you should have 18 stitches overall. Here we are at the end of that row number 3. I look for the first single crochet I made and then make a slip stitch and a chain 1. I do this after every row so that I can complete it and start the new one fresh. Okay, now row number 4, I do 2 single crochets and then an increase. So I do 1 single crochet here. I go to the next one, I do another single crochet, and on the one after that, I do an increase. And then I repeat this pattern. 2 single crochets and then an increase. At the end of this row, you should have 24 stitches overall. Okay, I finished row number 4. I do the same thing after every row. I do a slip stitch on the first single crochet and then a chain 1. For row number 5, we're first going to do an increase. So on the first stitch, we put 2 single crochets. And then we do 3 single crochets. So on the next stitch, we do 1. On the next stitch, we do 2. On the next stitch is our 3rd single crochet. And then we do an increase. And then 3 single crochets and then an increase. So you're going to continue this pattern of 3 single crochets and an increase until you get to the end of the row, and you should have 30 stitches overall. And this is a bit different because I started with an increase, and this is just so that it looks less like an octagon and more like a round circle. And so you should end not with an increase, but you should end with your 3 single crochets. So now I'm just doing my slip stitch and chain 1, and we are done with the red, so I'm cutting about this much of the yarn, and then I pull my hook upwards so that it makes a knot. Now we're going to switch to our white yarn. First thing, we're going to take our white yarn, hold it like so, and make a slip knot. So I twist my left hand, my right 2 fingers grab this yarn, and I pull up all the way until I make this loop. That's how you do a simple slip knot. I also have a short video on this. I'll link it down below so that you can learn it more slowly, how to make an easy slip knot. Okay, now I take my hook, I insert it into the stitch that I was just on, right here. You see this little V to the right of the tail? Could be difficult to see. Right there. And I tuck the tail behind so it doesn't get in my way. I take my slip knot, insert my hook in, and I adjust it so that it's a bit smaller. And then I pull it through that stitch. And that is how I change colors. Okay, so for this new row, we first do a chain 1. And then on the next stitch, I do a single crochet. And on the next stitch, I do another single crochet. So that's 2 single crochets. On the next stitch, I will do an increase. So 2 single crochets inside this stitch. And then I'll be doing 4 single crochets. So this is number 1. I go to the next stitch, number 2. Next stitch, number 3. Next stitch, number 4. And then next, I do an increase. After this, I do the 4 single crochets again, one after the other. And then after that, I do an increase again. So we just repeat this pattern, 4 single crochets and then an increase. Okay, so right here I just finished my increase, and then I have 2 stitches left, so I just make 2 single crochets. And I should have 36 stitches overall here. And then the same thing I always do, I look for the first single crochet I made, insert my hook, and then make a slip stitch and chain 1. Sorry, this white yarn makes it really difficult to see, but at this point you guys know how to do a slip stitch and a chain 1. Okay, so I cut my white yarn because I am done with it now, and then I pull my crochet hook up, so that makes a knot. Now we'll be using our dark green yarn. So same thing with the white, we first make a slip knot, and this is how I'll demonstrate it again. My left hand twists, my right hand grabs the yarn and pulls all the way up until you make a loop. And then once again, I take my project, insert my hook to the right of the tail that I just made, right here. Tuck my tail behind, grab the slip knot, insert my hook through the loop, adjust it so that it's smaller, and pull it through that stitch, and then chain 1. Okay, so for this one, we're going to do 5 single crochets first. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. On the next stitch, we will do an increase. And then again, we do 5 single crochets. And then again after that, we do an increase. So we just repeat this pattern all the way to the end of this row, and you should have 42 stitches overall. Okay, so I'm just doing my last increase of this row, and I have 42 stitches here. I look for the first single crochet and I make the slip stitch again, and then a chain 1. Now I'm gonna cut a very long tail for this because I need it to sew this watermelon closed. So I have this long tail, I pull my crochet hook upwards to make a knot. And now we're gonna need our black yarn. For this one I use kind of like a really dark brown because seeds can come in that color as well. But feel free to use black or brown or dark brown. Okay, so now I'm using my darning needle because I'm going to sew the seeds on. So we're going to find row number 3. So 1, 2, 3. I found row number 3. I insert my hook from the back to the top of row number 3, right here. Okay, 1, 2, 3. And then I pull my needle all the way up. And then I just insert it back on top of row number 4, like this. After that, I go all the way across, like directly across from what you just made. Look for row number 3 again, right there. And do the same thing where I go on top of row number 4. There you go. And then I turn it again so that you can kind of look for the halfway point between the two. I look for row number 3 and then insert on top of row number 4. There you go. And then again, just directly across from it, you do the exact same thing. And then I look for the middle of these two, and then I do the same thing. Just make sure that you're going directly across so that you're spacing it out more evenly. This is not going to be the most even just because that's how the stitches work. They're not the most even, but you can at least make it as even as possible instead of all the seeds being clumped in one place or being very irregular. So this is my second last one, and then that's my last seed. As you can see, it's not perfect, but I think that's the best we could have done. Okay, now I have all of these tails, and I'm gonna cut everything a bit shorter except for the dark green one that we need to sew it closed. So this is the dark brown. I'm just cutting it so that it's shorter. And now I'm gonna fold this in half. So I take all the tails and then I fold it like so. I make sure that the dark green, this one right here, is to my right and it's directly where the halfway point is. Then I shove all these tails into the project. You can cut these tails much shorter, but I like having a little bit more body to my keychain, so I keep them all in there. Okay, so now that we have our shape, I use my needle on this dark green yarn so that we can start closing this keychain. Okay, so make sure your left hand is holding the keychain shut so that it doesn't cause any problems. Okay, so you see this V right here? I insert my hook only to one side, the back side. And on this V, I insert it only on the back side as well. So when I am sewing, I'm only inserting my needle in one loop. So one from the front and then one from the back, like so, instead of going on the two. There we go. And then I just basically repeat this, and at least this way you're going through each V at once, so you shouldn't miss a stitch at all, and it makes sure that your sewing is more even. Okay, so I sewed all the way to the end, and now I'm just making my knot. So I just pick a random stitch and I make a loop like this, insert my needle back in to make a knot, and then I insert my needle all the way into the project so that I can hide the tail, and then I let it come out the other side before I cut it. And that's basically it for the crocheting part. We just now have to insert the keychain accessory. You might have a different one. You can choose whatever you'd like. I just get this from Amazon. The link is down below if you want to get the same thing that I do. But yeah, so this is basically the end of the project. Great job, guys! You made a fruit keychain. Thank you so much for watching this episode, and I'll see you guys next week for episode number 3.